Welcome back to the Gundam Retrospective, a look back at one of the most expansive properties in anime history. Today we talk about a 25-episode TV anime called Gundam Build Fighters, a series that's both divisive within the Gundam fandom and also unique for what it is and what it would go on to become. While most Gundam shows portray some sort of spaceborne conflict involving the giant robots, Build Fighters focuses on the exploits of Gunpla fighters, people who use a mysteriously newly discovered particle to manipulate and battle plastic models. Honestly, I'm surprised that a TV series about Gunpla, the most profitable piece of the Gundam franchise that completely pulled it from the jaws of oblivion, wasn't tried before this. Technically, there was an OVA called Mobile Suit Gunpla Builders Beginning G that was made to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the very first Gunpla model. Build Fighters expands on that concept, introducing us to a world where battling Gunpla is pretty much the biggest thing since sliced bread. Hey, at least in this show, they don't quarantine an entire city for a children's toy like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Beyond being a straight-up commercial for a lot of the Gunpla that are on display, Build Fighters is a series packed with references, memes, and Easter eggs that draws on the franchise's long and storied history. So going into this series, I had to ask, is that enough for this to be a worthy entry into the Gundam universe? Can you successfully take a show about the horrors of war and humanity's endless struggle to evolve into a more empathetic creature and turn it into a 25-minute commercial that is at the very least entertaining? Let's find out by taking a look at Gundam Build Fighters. Our main character is the 13-year-old blue-haired Sei Iori, a kid who lives in a world modeled after our own. While giant robots and space colonies don't exist in the world of Build Fighters, Gundam being the best thing since sliced bread is almost as good. Yes, in this world, Gunpla saved the Gundam franchise from a quick death, just like in real life, but there was also a second Gunpla boom thanks to something called the Plavsky particle. Basically a particle that can be used to move around the plastic Gunpla models, allowing builders to become pilots and reenact their favorite moments from the shows, or even creating brand new epic fights. Of course, a crazy toy/sport like this is the perfect venue for making money, and as such there's an entire Gunpla World Tournament that happens every year and is like the World Cup times 10, although I'm not sure anyone ever burned a car over Gunpla fighting. Sei has been brought up in the Gunpla fervor, and we see that his father Takeshi has a trophy for second place in the 7th World Championship. As such, Sei is pretty much Gundam obsessed, and not only with the building of the plastic models, but also with trivia of the shows and the mechanics of the worlds. So much so that he often babbles about it incoherently. Maybe he should start a YouTube channel. The kid is pretty much destined to like the franchise though. I mean, his father Takeshi and mother Rinko own a model shop together, and Sei grew up watching the classic series. In the back corner of the shop is a table that allows players to face each other in Gunpla battle, and it's when Sei fights against this asshole kid named Sasaki that we see the first hurdle that our main character has to overcome. While Sei is great at building Gunpla, he isn't very good at controlling them during battle. Sasaki wants Sei to enter the upcoming regional tournament with him, thinking that with Sei's building skills and his piloting skills, they can at least make it to the big championship. Sei thinks Sasaki's style is too rough for his Gunpla and refuses, ending in the two arguing and challenging each other to a Gunpla battle match. Despite Sei's building skills and his heart being in the right place, he loses the match pretty badly, with Sasaki telling him that if he wants to compete at a world level like his dad, then he'll need more than just building skills. Out on the town, we get a lot of quick shots of people enjoying Gunpla battle, with a wide variety of the plastic models, even including the dumb wheel guys from Victory. That's one thing that you'll notice right at the start of Build Fighters. The fan service dial is cranked to 11 right from the start, with references to every old series. except for Gundam Age, which I guess it didn't show up due to licensing issues or something. And no, I don't mean the sexy type of fan service. Sei's mom is reserved for that slot, thank you very much. They knew exactly what they were doing when they put her in that sweater. Also, we get our first taste of Gundam Build Fighters' phenomenal soundtrack. There are a lot of tracks in this show that are really good and range from a hip-hop techno fusion sound to classic synth and big band instruments. That's one thing that I've really never heard anyone hate on with this show. Even if you hate the premise, the OST is pretty much universally loved. In town, while thinking about his Gunpla, Sei runs into a strange red-haired boy named Reiji, who asks him about a Gunpla battle ad being played on a giant screen. While they talk, a frustrated shop owner runs over and accuses Reiji of stealing some bread, and Sei intervenes on his behalf to pay for it. Because of his kindness, Reiji gives Sei a small blue gem and tells him that if he makes a wish on it, Reiji will come to help him, and then he just kinda disappears. Alright, well, definitely a strange encounter, but at the very least, Sei is able to clear his head enough to finish his Gunpla for the tournament, the Strike Build Gundam, a personalized version of Kira Yamato's own Strike. Soon after finishing, Sasaki shows back up, demanding to use Sei's Build Strike for the tournament, but to our surprise, Sei decides to take on Sasaki and his Gien once again. Also, fucking Ramba Ral is just here as a character, so get used to that. He's a regular at the model shop and says he'll referee the match. Sei fights valiantly, but he just isn't skilled enough to keep up with the Build Strike's performance, and just when Sei is about to lose, he wishes he had the skill and strength to match his building skills. Suddenly, Reiji appears to fulfill Sei's wish, easily defeating the Gien and disappearing before Sei can thank him. Sei ponders how Reiji can appear and disappear like that, and just when you think this might be a plot point that will follow for a while, Reiji is just sorta chilling at his house eating his food. Nice fake out, Build Fighters. While at first it appears that Reiji will be Sei's savior, they quickly devolve into a sort of odd couple situation. Reiji says that Gunpla battle doesn't really interest him, and Sei kind of thinks that, like, beyond Reiji's ability to pilot Gunpla really well, he's kind of an annoying weirdo. At school, Sei ends up talking to the student council president. Yuki is a fan of Sei's models and even asks him if he's going to be entering the upcoming tournament, which is flattering because Yuki is a regional champ himself. Their conversation is cut short by Reiji showing up at school because he got bored hanging around the shop with Sei's mom. He gets in a fight with a big guy named Gondo, who pilots a sumo from Turn A. Reiji wipes the floor with him and then takes on Yuki and his Zaku Amazing in a battle that he loses. However, Reiji demands a rematch, saying he only lost because the strike isn't complete yet. Yuki says he can have his rematch, but only if it's at the upcoming Japanese regionals, and with that, Reiji has the motivation to help Sei carry out his dream. But by this point in the show, you actually realize what Gundam Build Fighters is. Yuki is a character that slicks back his hair to Gunpla battle and takes the competition incredibly seriously. While battles here aren't life and death, you wouldn't know that just based on the hot-blooded shonen screaming that they rattle out every episode. Build Fighters is an inherently silly show with a goofy concept, but it knows exactly when to take itself seriously and play its characters and tropes completely straight. And finally, to go along with its light tone, this show does have a fantasy element to it. Reiji turns red and disappears right in front of Sei at the end of one episode. Don't worry, he comes back and tells Sei that he's the crown prince of a land called Aryan, a fantasy land that we barely see or know anything about through the entirety of the show's runtime. Oh, also, Reiji seems to have originally shown up at the top of Tokyo Tower, and I wonder if that is a Magic Knight Rayearth reference. Now that Reiji is interested in Gunpla battle, Raul takes it upon himself to train the young hothead. Reiji beats him, and Raul explains that currently, Reiji's drawing upon the quality of Sei's Gunpla to win against more experienced opponents. He takes Reiji to a Gunpla Xeon cosplay bar where Reiji proceeds to beat the snot out of all the patrons there with nothing but a ball model. I love that this is the equivalent of taking a teenager to a fucking Nazi biker bar to toughen them up. When they get insulted by Reiji being kind of a snot-nosed jerk and team up on him, we get introduced to one of my favorite Build Fighters characters, the leather jacket-wearing, moped-riding Italian dandy, Riccardo Fellini. Fellini is a world-level competitor and friend of Raul, piloting the Wing Gundam Fenice, and overall just being a pretty cool dude, and he drives a moped because haha Italian. Sei finishes his Build Strike full package in the art room after school, something that he's actually not allowed to do, that little scamp. His friend China Kosaka watches him and starts getting a crush on him just because he's so into Gunpla as an art form. Take that advice, guys. Women love passionate men. Even if they're passionate about building plastic models from a cartoon, trust me, it worked for me. Sei arrives at the preliminaries alone, worrying that Reiji didn't really want to come, and he even has a hard time wondering if he pushed Gunpla battle on Reiji a little too hard. But just as the match is about to begin, Reiji and Riccardo show up, and Reiji has blisters on his fingers after sparring with the Italian fighter for over 200 matches in preparation. Now both our heroes are ready for the 7th World Tournament to begin. While the boys fight their way through the prelims and eventually the qualifiers, the show starts introducing us to characters that we'll be dealing with in more depth on the world stage. First is Kirara, a Gunpla idol ripped right out of Gundam Seed that tries to sabotage the build strike, and then there's Mao. He's more of a foil to Sei than Reiji, as he's striving to be the world's best builder specifically, and he has a Gundam X, so that's pretty cool. Of course, Riccardo is also a recurring character throughout this early arc, and for the moment he represents a goal beyond Yuki for Reiji. We also get to see a lot of Riccardo Fellini outside of Gunpla battle, which I'm totally fine with because it's fun to watch him try to woo women by giving them Gunpla at the bar. As it turns out, Reiji is going to need a motivator to finish out the qualifiers, because right before they're supposed to match up, Yuki drops out of the tournament and school for reasons unknown. Reiji is incredibly bothered by this to the point where Sei doesn't even see him for a full week leading up to the finals. When we see him bump into Raul out in public, he acts all aloof about Gunpla battle and how it's just a silly game that he doesn't care about, but as soon as Yuki walks up to him, he gets super serious. Yuki won't reveal why he dropped out, but does agree to a battle against Reiji, and the two finally duke it out at the school with everyone watching. While we don't get to see the result of the battle, we do learn that Reiji completely lost, but instead of being disappointed or dejected, he now seems to have a genuine love of the game, and a want to move on to the World Championships to find more worthy opponents. Reiji fights a guy using a Gundam XX in the finals and defeats him without much trouble. I find it interesting how this arc focuses a lot more on the out-of-battle growth of the characters and not so much on the actual tournament battles. Raul and Rinko decide to take Sei, Reiji, and China on a little vacation and celebration, and yeah, it's pretty much the stereotypical Hot Springs episode. It does serve to give Mao a love interest in the form of the girl that runs the local inn, but honestly, all Mao does about it is fucking whine for the entire show, so it's mostly a net negative. I guess this episode also shows that people use Gunpla for evil. Like this one guy who's trying to force the inn owners to sell their land and can only be dissuaded via Gunpla battle. Don't worry, if that sounds stupid, there's a whole ass Gunpla mafia later on. We then get to meet another competitor named Nils Nilsson, a young prodigy from America who's not only a total weeb, but also uses his Sengoku Astray to wreck the American favorite, a guy named Greco. Riccardo is shocked by this news, having hoped to face off against Greco at the World Tournament, but excited by the skill level of all the new entrants. We also meet Ayla, who not only becomes the fighter for a team called Nemesis, but also defeats the 6th world champion in a total upset. And then there is PPSE's own special entrant to the tournament, a fighter named Meijin Kawaguchi III, who is totally not just Yuki in a mask, so the competition is definitely going to be fierce. This is something Sei has been thinking about a lot after meeting people like Fellini and Mao. He wonders if he really is good enough to compete on their level and locks himself in the modeling room of the shop to work on the strike for days at a time. Sei comes to a breakthrough in Gunpla design when he has to help out China. She has a rival in the form of a girl named Caroline, who is always competing with her in art. China sees her as a friend and is kind of oblivious to their rivalry, but when Caroline sees that China is getting into Gunpla building to get closer to Sei, she challenges her to a Gunpla fight. For a filler fight, this is actually pretty fun. The bear guy is filled with cotton fiber because he's a teddy bear robot, and that becomes the key to winning as the fiber immobilizes Caroline's Knight Gundam. Seeing this is also the push that Sei needs to overcome a major hurdle in Gunpla building, thinking outside of the box. Up until now, Sei has been limited because of his adherence to Gundam canon when creating the Build Strike. But after being inspired by the likes of China and Mao, he now has what it takes to make his Gunpla truly unique. In Sei's case, this newfound creativity results in a couple of new systems for the Star Build Strike. During the opening bout of the World Tournament, which takes the form of a battle royal with every fighter participating, we're introduced to a couple of these weapon systems firsthand. First is the beam absorption shield that sucks up enemy fire and stores it for use with the discharge system. The discharge system has a few applications throughout the show, but for now it is mostly utilized to fire an immensely powerful beam rifle that can destroy even huge enemies. There is a rumored third mode for the strike, but that's a mystery for now, and throughout the Battle Royal we see things aren't going to be quite so simple for Sei and Reiji. Firstly, the guy in charge of the whole tournament is a dude named Chairman Mashita, and he has a mysterious secret that is somehow connected to Reiji. He's so afraid of Reiji knowing his secret that he conspires with his assistant, Miss Baker, to knock him out of the tournament. The giant Zaku that they have to fight during the first round was their doing, and there will be many more tricks to come. On top of that, Reiji keeps running into Ayla outside of the tournament, though he doesn't know her name, and during Gunpla battle she wears a Mega Man costume, so he doesn't even realize she's in the World Tournament. But these two are obviously set up as star-crossed or bun-crossed lovers right from the start, and it's a story thread that gets a fair amount of screen time in the remaining episodes. Finally, it would appear that Yuki isn't out of the show, as he is reintroduced as a special entrant into the World Tournament sponsored by PPSE, the very company that invented the Plavsky particle. He goes by the name Meijin Kawaguchi, which we learn is an inherited title given to masters of Gunpla battle, and Yuki is the third. He wears a cool coat and an Apple headset, and overall has a much more serious demeanor, even breaking into the chairman's room to confront him about the giant Zaku. Mashita says it's just to put on a good show, but Yuki is completely at odds with the chairman's goals and butts heads with his decisions throughout the entire tournament. If it isn't outside forces getting in the way of Sei and Reiji, then it's Reiji's hot-headedness that gets them into trouble. While he's out on the town one night, Ayla shows up to repay him for some food from earlier, and the two get in a fight with these scumbags that pull a baseball bat on them. Reiji does beat the shit out of them. I guess he can use Aryan Fu, but he also hurts his wrist, which is a pretty big setback for their upcoming battle. They have to face a guy named Luong in a match modeled after a baseball game, which really just feels like sort of a contrived reason to bring up Reiji's injury. Luong is also a former professional baseball player, and the show straight up says he has a lifetime batting average of 89%. And I don't know what stat they're referencing, but that's like superhuman level batting average. Look, I don't know a lot about baseball, but Ty Cobbs, who is widely known as one of the best batters ever, his lifetime batting average was less than half that, at around 40%. So yeah, I guess Sei and Reiji have their work cut out for them. I gotta say, it does seem a little contrived that this fight has to be a baseball game as well, and I was pretty happy that we went back to normal tournament fights pretty much right after this. While I don't watch a lot of sports anime, someone at Sunrise sure did, because this scene was hype as hell at the very least. Sei reveals the final piece of the Star Build Strike puzzle, the RG system, a Transam style power-up that works by taking all that absorbed energy over time and using it to supercharge the particles inside the model. Ultimately, this just leads to their finishing move being a throwback to G Gundam's Shining Finger, so I can't really hate it, but yes, the build knuckle attack comes in handy many times throughout the rest of the series. The tournament progresses steadily, and because it runs on a points-based system, it allows characters to stay in the show even if they suffer a loss here and there. The show literally skips over a few rounds as Reiji wins all his matches that take the form of accuracy challenges and other games. They have to take part in a Gunpla race for one round and come under fire from a guy in the Gunpla Mafia. He is the most conspicuous mafioso I have ever seen, and this plot point basically boils down to Machida literally taking a hit out on Reiji, but like in plastic model form. It's kind of a stupid plot point, but it also does give us a scene where Raul tracks down Sei, the Gunpla hitman, and he uses the power of his love of Gunpla battle to lift the guy over his head and smash him into a computer console. Unfortunately, Sei gets away, and other than probably having a broke-ass spine, he was able to complete his objective of messing with Sei and Reiji, who now absolutely have to win their final preliminary match to make it into the top 16. The final round of the prelims happen to be one-on-one battles, and who better for Reiji to face than the man who trained him to be tournament material, Riccardo Fellini. Before the match, we get a scene with Nils, who's been hired by Caroline's father to figure out the secret of Plavsky particles. PPSE is apparently very secretive about the tech, and other companies think that it could be utilized for far more than just battling plastic models. Honestly, yeah, they do kind of have a point. Think of what you could accomplish with Plavsky particle technology in the medical field, for example. So Nils is dressed like a literal ninja while spying on Chairman Machida, and he overhears the chairman's worries that Reiji might know the secret of the Plavsky particle, but he never uses Reiji's name, so Nils is left to figure out that info for himself. Also, why the hell does Nils need a sword for his ninja outfit? Is Nils out there killing guys like it's fucking Tenchu? Because of the points system of the preliminaries, Riccardo realizes that if he throws the battle against Reiji, they will all still go to the finals. This is even suggested to him by Kirara. However, Fellini decides not to deny himself the chance to give Reiji a true battle, and the bout between the Italian dandy and the boy from Arian is one of the most hype moments from the entire show. The animation is really well done, and most importantly, fights like this let you live out your what-if questions when it comes to all the different models. Like, what if the Wing Gundam had a beam cloak that it could wrap around its fist for a super punch? It is pure playground creativity and one-upsmanship at its finest, and it just ends up being really fun. Luckily for Sei, Reiji, and Riccardo, they go so all out in a big final punch that both models are rendered unable to fight, ending the final battle of the preliminaries in a draw. As the series moves on into its final stretch of episodes, Reiji is becoming more and more interested in actual Gunpla models. He even wants to help Sei rebuild the strike for the finals, but Sei shoos him off, telling him he's too much of a big brute to do such delicate work. So he ends up deciding to build his own model and runs into Ayla at the mall. Oh yeah, she also has to come up with a name to tell Reiji, so she tells him her name is Aina. Wow, real creative. The two are taught the way of Gunpla model building by a weird guy in the model shop that is definitely not Sei's dad wearing a fake beard. Reiji builds a beginning Gundam, which is what the protagonist of that Gunpla OVA I mentioned used. Kind of a cool callback, and I like the design. At this point, Sei shows back up to complete the Gunpla hit on Reiji, but like, it's not like Sei is destroying their tournament models, so I guess his goal is just to fuck with them? Fake beard guy chases Sei down and tackles him in the bathroom, revealing that he was Sei's father Takeshi all along, and that he is an international Gunpla referee. But he seems more like a Gunpla cop, as he has handcuffs and takes custody of Sei. It's a really weird part of the plot, but hey, Wizards of the Coast will actually send the Pinkertons to your house to intimidate you, so I get it. The finals finally begin and Sei and Reiji face their first opponent, Mao. Mao doesn't know what he should do to defeat the Star Build Strike after seeing Reiji fight Ricardo to a draw, and has a flashback of himself and his old master talking about building. Mao comes from this school of Gunpla with a lecherous old master, but more importantly, Mao is just kind of annoying. Of all the Build Fighters characters, he's the one I like the least. He's annoying pretty much constantly, and he spends the latter half of the show having sobbing outbursts over the girl he likes from the Hot Springs episode. The thing is, once Reiji completely knocks him out of the tournament at the end of this episode, big surprise, Mao sticks around having nothing to do in the plot but be obnoxious. The other characters acknowledge that he's being fucking annoying too, so it's not just me either. One big upside of Mao is that later on he gets Gundam Crossbone kit, and that's cool because like you just never see Crossbone anywhere, especially not animated. Also, I just don't like his character design with his Pokemon bug catcher ass overalls and Wicked Witch socks. Get him out of here. Finally, we get to see Yuki, Meijin Kawaguchi, do something as his first bout is up next. He fights a pair of twins called the Renato brothers that are a pretty run-of-the-mill villain of the week type characters. What makes this episode really good though is the fact that the models on both sides are really cool, with the Renatos using a GM sniper and Meijin using the Camphor Amazing. The battle takes place in a rainy city with plenty of sniper perches, and it's just a really fun episode. Honestly, if you want to pop on some Build Fighters with no context and just see some fun action, episode 18 is probably the best one for that. At the end, the Renato brothers use something called the exam system to power up. Sei incorrectly thinks it's the Trans Am at first, but is corrected and told the exam system is from a Sega Saturn game called Blue Destiny. Pretty deep cut for a reference, but that's a pretty cool nod to anyone out there that played that Sega Saturn game. Next, Sei and Reiji are up against Nils, but before their match he meets them in a park at night. Nils still suspects that either Sei or Reiji know the secret to Plavsky particles and offers to throw the match if they tell him right then. Of course, Reiji takes this as an insult and tells him that he'll have to win a fair match to find out, even though Reiji doesn't know the secret, but that's him putting his mouth before his brain like always. The fight against Nils is where Sei is required to get a little creative with his building skills. Because the Sengoku Astray focuses on melee and has no beam weapons, the Absorb Shield and Discharge Rifle are basically useless. This leaves Reiji to rely solely on the RG system and Build Knuckle move. The two combatants go at it until both models are heavily damaged, so much so that a 1-minute timeout is given so that both sides can make quick repairs. When they return to the arena, Nils finds his attacks are now ineffective because Sei covered the strike in a coating of glue that his attacks couldn't penetrate. After the fight is over, Reiji makes Nils admit that he does like Gunpla Battle. Everyone likes Gunpla Battle. You will like Gunpla Battle. While Nils tries to pry the secrets of Plavsky particles out of Reiji's head by making him meditate, Ricardo heads to his next match against the mysterious Isla. I haven't gone into Isla's backstory much, but basically she's an orphan that for some reason can see Plavsky particles, and therefore she can tell how the models are going to move during Gunpla Battle. She gets taken in by the Flana Institute, and they're pretty abusive to her, especially her direct superior in the organization, a guy named Nine. He tells her that without Gunpla Battle, she's trash and that's all she's good for. So when Isla starts getting distracted by thoughts of Reiji during battle, Nine decides it's time to whip out something called the Embody system. This is really similar to the Berserker system used in G Gundam, and makes Isla go completely nuts, smashing the Gundam Wing Fenice to pieces. Reiji somehow enters the battlefield with his beginning Gundam. Man, the World Tournament needs better security. But that is quickly destroyed as well. Reiji finds out that Aina is actually Isla when her damaged helmet is taken off, and he says he can never forgive her for destroying the Fenice after the battle is over. He swears to defeat her on the honor of the Royal House of Aryan, which causes Mashida to freak out again as it confirms his suspicions that Reiji is in fact from another world. China meets Isla in the hallway when it's almost time for the next match and gives her a good luck charm that we don't see. 9 brushes this off as China just being a fan. The match between Reiji and Isla is pretty brutal, with the Cubile smashing the strike around and even ripping off one of its arms. When Isla refuses to finish off her opponent, 9 boosts the embody system to maximum output, which makes her go berserk again. As Isla calls out for help, we see that the good luck charm that she has is actually the stone that Reiji originally gave to Sei, so when she wishes for help, Reiji can hear her. Their consciousnesses are transported to this white void where Isla explains that if she stops fighting, she'll be homeless, and Reiji's like, why didn't you say so? Just come live with Sei like me and be a freeloader. During this exchange, we also discover that Chairman Machida also has a stone from Aryan embedded in his pocket watch. After their talk, Isla casts off her helmet and decides to fight Reiji in earnest without the embody system, and he promptly beats her with the build knuckle. Next, we get to see Yuki battle once again, this time with a customized Gundam Exia. So he's supposed to battle this old man named Alexander Mackenzie from the UK, but Mackenzie has a heart attack, so his grandson Julian is going to be a stand-in fighter for him. Yuki is shocked to hear that he has to fight Julian because at the old Gunpla Academy he used to attend, Julian was known as being closest to being chosen as the next Meijin. So Yuki is shook that he has to fight this guy that used to basically be his mentor, and Julian is pretty cool with his F91. I actually really like that design because it's fairly simple for build fighters and shows that a well-built Gunpla can stand up to any highly customized kitted out model. However, this feels like a subplot that was ripped out of the second half of the season and crushed down into one episode. I actually like all of the story beats, but it's depressing to think about how much better it could have been if Julian had been introduced way earlier. You could have even had his grandfather still be the fighter and have a heart attack and everything still, but we never saw him up until this point, so it just feels really amateurish. There's an alternative world where this show set up Julian as a rival to Yuki instead of focusing on, I don't know, the Mao being annoying. Anyway, Yuki has to use the Trans Am to defeat him, and that's pretty cool. The whole point of this show is references, so I can't really be mad about that. At this point, Machida is getting real nervous about Reiji being in the finals against Meijin. He thinks that for some reason Reiji will blow the lid off the secret of Plavsky particles and take everything from him, which is kind of dumb because Reiji has no idea what he's talking about. Every one of Machida's schemes seems to fail, and he really is his own worst enemy. If he just let the tournament go on as planned and did literally nothing, then he would just still be sitting pretty as a super rich guy who drives around in gold-plated limos. Instead, he and Nine, who is pissed about Isla and wants revenge, force Yuki to wear a new outfit as Meijin, and this puts him under the control of the embody system. While all this is happening, Nils and Caroline are still trying to figure out the secret of the particles, and they just decide to follow some trucks to a Plavsky particle production plant. They find these secret tunnels that lead them all the way back under the city to the arena, and find that underneath the building is a giant crystal. Nils had realized after testing that the gem from Reiji's bracelet was crystallized Plavsky particles, and this giant one confirms his theory that the particles themselves come from this mysterious mineral. But before the two can blow the lid off of the secret of Plavsky particles, they're captured by Baker's armed guards. So Yuki is now being controlled by Machida through the embody system, and his Exia has been further modified into the Gundam Exia Dark Matter, an even edgier version of the Exia that sports dual dark matter blades and an experimental GN drive. Meijin fights to win immediately, not even giving Reiji and Sei time to pull off the discharge rifle. The strike is pounded into a wall until it appears to power down. Machida, thinking that this is his moment of triumph, starts blabbing to Baker about how he was just a lowly thief in the kingdom of Aryan until he stole the giant Arista crystal and fled to this version of Earth. It does not get more specific than that either. The Arista crystal itself is glowing gold because of the high density of Plavsky particles, and Ayla can hear Mashita talking about his plan through her crystal. She then informs Reiji and Sei that Yuki is being controlled. Reiji uses the RG system to get the strike back up, and when they start getting through to Yuki, Mashita orders the Embody system to be set to full output. This is when Yuki's friend from PPSE, Alan, who's been a character with like 8 lines in this entire show, tackles 9 and causes a ruckus long enough for Yuki to fight back against the Embody system. Reiji and Sei resort to using their super secret double build knuckle in a huge flashy attack that knocks the soul out of the Exia Dark Matter, and the 7th Gunpla World Championship comes to a close with Reiji and Sei being declared the winners. They can't celebrate just yet, however, as the Arista crystal starts going haywire and forms a huge model of Aboa Q in the sky above the stadium. Plavsky crystals start forming everywhere and the stadium is evacuated for fear that it's gonna collapse. Nils shows back up after escaping when things started going to shit, and he suggests using their Gunpla to destroy the crystal that is now located in the floating fortress. So now we get a really neat final episode where all the characters get to use their Gunpla one more time. Even Takeshi and Raul get in on the action. Reiji pulls out the Hyper Build Knuckle this time and takes out the giant crystal, and the series gets a very bittersweet ending, as without the Arista crystal, the Plavsky particles are fading away. Reiji, Sei, and Yuki want to have one last battle, during which Reiji hands the controls over to Sei, telling him that it was never his lack of skill that held him back, it was his unwillingness to put his models into harm's way. Yuki and Sei both give it their all, battling until the particles start fading away, along with Reiji. Reiji tells Sei that he's learned to love Gunpla battle, and that his wish is to fight Sei one day when he becomes stronger. Reiji fades away, leaving Sei with the memories of their friendship and their fight through the 7th World Tournament, but he does promise to come back one day. Reiji appears in Aryan, however, he has Ayla along with him who says that he has to keep his promise of giving her someplace to live. Damn, Reiji, you go on vacation, you come back a world champion of a sport you've never even heard of, and with a girlfriend, you Chad. 1 year later, we see that Nils and Caroline have somehow created some sort of Plavsky particle without the Arista crystal. Don't ask me how, it's on a Japanese newspaper and I can't read it. And Sei is entering the regional qualifiers for the 8th World Tournament as the defending champion, intent to keep his promise to Reiji to continue to grow his skills for the inevitable day when his friend returns. Gundam Build Fighters is definitely a tonally strange entry into the Gundam franchise. Look, even though I enjoyed this series quite a bit, I'll never deny that it is a very obvious commercial for the numerous models sprinkled throughout every episode. In a sense, every Gundam show is a commercial if you want to be really reductive about it, but Build Fighters has multiple moments where characters say out loud, "Wow, Gunpla has really brought us together. I love Gunpla." Or they talk about the magic of Gunpla building. They may as well just look directly at the screen and tell you how much each model they've shown off costs. That's how obvious it is. So really, I think how much you enjoy Build Fighters will come down to how much of that you can put up with. While the story is pretty run-of-the-mill and mostly a vehicle for shoving toys on the screen, it does have some fun characters like Ricardo. While I think most fans of Gundam are drawn to the franchise for the deep universe or the classic stories, you can't deny that asking, what if Gundam Exio was evil and fought the Strike Gundam, but also the Strike Gundam can use Shining Finger, and also it can use Kaioken, and then my friend's Gundam uses his domain expansion. It's a fun time. Gundam Build Fighters is pure playground style action figures smacking together with a standard story about friendship and growing out of your comfort zone, and honestly I think there's room for that in the Gundam franchise. Oh yeah, also, the show's fantasy elements really don't play into it that much, and they may as well not really even be there. Sure, the crystal is important, but it's really not explained beyond just being magic. It stood out as just being a weird quirk of the story to me. So, what did you think of Gundam Build Fighters? Let me know down below, and also chime in on how the rest of the Build subseries is. I know that Build Divers is apparently pretty bad, but I never really hear anyone talk about Build Fighters Try or Re-Rise. And as always, if you did enjoy this video, thank you very much, and feel free to leave a like down below and throw a sub my way if you'd like. We're almost at 25,000, so that's pretty cool. I hope you all enjoyed, and you have a great rest of your day. Hey everyone, welcome to today's end card. I'm going to start out by reading off the channel members as always, aka Batosai, Argent, Griever, Ashar, Khazar, Brian Sanchez, D. Mells, Daniel Johnson, Deader V, Dilla, Soul 22, Gert, Joe Castellanos, Joe Cavazos, John Lamb, Johnny G, Canto 20, McLean Nugent, Mr. Smash, Zappa Slave, Video Gamer 75, Trey Hardy, and Sindustries. Thank you all very much for continuing to be channel members. I know sometimes it takes a while to produce a video just because it's a lot of work for me, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed making this one. It was really fun to shoot. I got into a pretty good groove while making it. So I'm glad that it's going up. Next up is the Big O video, and I know a lot of people are excited to hear what I think of the Big O, and it is definitely an interesting series. I didn't know anything about it going in, and yeah, I think I have a lot to say about it, so that will be a fun and interesting video as well. And then, you know what, I've really been wanting to do just a really nostalgic video game video about a game, and I think I'm gonna do one of the Budokai games, the DBZ Budokai games, as like a retrospective. I think Budokai 1 would be real fun. So that eventually will come out on this channel as like a gaming retrospective, and I think maybe I'll put the footage of me playing it on the gaming channel. So I haven't done anything on the gaming channel in quite a while, so that over there, well, you can keep a lookout over there if you want to, and see some of that footage go up. Anyway, thank you again. Hope y'all enjoy and have a great rest of your day. We will see you all again very soon talking about the Big O. And then next up for Gundam is Reconquista and G, so that'll be pretty fun. Have a good one.